Hello, stamping friends. It's 6 o'clock on Monday night, and it's Anne, the Stampmaven, here with some more fun things to share with you. I've got a card that I put on Facebook to show you. It uses some really cool new designer series paper that we have, and I'm going to give you some fun tips. And stick around to the end because one of my friends was asking me today some questions about the different kinds of Stampin' Up ink and what to use when. And so I thought, well, hey, you guys might like that information too. So I'm going to share that. If you're catching this not live, then that means you've gotten the recording here on Facebook Live or on YouTube. So I'm glad you popped in as well. So let's get started. Let me turn my camera around here and we will get focused in on my stamp table. All righty. That looks pretty good. Well, tonight I am going to be showing you this card and how to make it. But I wanted to show you a couple of fun things first. This card right here that I made with Petal Pink, I use the exact same designer series paper on both cards. Isn't it amazing what just a little ink will do to this black and white paper? And here's another card that uses the paper just in black and white. And I wanted to show you, I used this sentiment, life is better with a friend like you. But the stamp set I used is this Peaceful Moments stamp set. And if you notice, the sentiment right here is in one straight line. But on my card, let's bring that back in. On my card here, it's separated. Now, you could easily take a black Stampin' Write marker, color part of it, breathe on it, put it down, then clean it off and do it again. But what I like to do with longer sentiments sometimes is cut them, and that way you end up having two pieces, and then you can stamp them however you want. You can stamp them as they came in the set, or you can separate them. So I just wanted to share that fun little tip with you. Now, also, let me just show you a few more of the pieces of this paper in the pack. It's got polka dots, it's got little flowers, different kinds of stripes. This is what I used on that card. I just fussy cut around it. There is a die, so if you stamp, then you can cut it out with your die. And look at this one here. Another fun thing to do with paper like this is just to color different parts of it. Have you ever seen those photographs that are taken in black and white and then just a part like the lips or maybe a flower that someone is wearing? They're done that way. So you can do the same thing with this paper. Now, one thing, let me bring in this other card really quickly. I have always heard, I think my mom always told me growing up, you never want to wear stripes and polka dots. It doesn't look good. But I think on this card that it looks fabulous. So that just goes to show you don't always have to listen to everything your mom tells you, right? So let us get started. I want to show you, in case you want to write these down, what we are going to be using today. So our first piece is Bermuda Bay card base, and I've cut a piece of my cardstock at 4.5 by 11, and then I've scored it here at 5.5. So card base, Bermuda Bay, 4.5 by 11, 5.5. Then I'm going to get my bone folder here and give it a good crease. Okay. Now then, the next thing we're going to use on our card is this black layer. It is 4 by 5.25. I'm not going to put that down on my card yet because I actually want to color my DSP piece. The DSP piece is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. All right, and I will answer all of your questions at the end of the video. I'm kind of learned that when I stop to answer questions or to say hi to people, it can be very distracting. So I don't want to do that. Okay, so I had my Bermuda Bay card base. So then I decided, okay, what inks do I think will look good with that? So I pulled out my Pool Party, which is kind of in the same color family as the Bermuda Bay. I wanted to pull in some Granny Apple Green because there are some leaves on this DSP, and then some Daffodil Delight, just to add a little different color on some of these smaller flowers. So when I was coloring this first one, I decided that just using that Pool Party left it a little too light. So I went and I got my Bermuda Bay cardstock, and I'm going to show you how I pulled that in. So I'm going to open up my pads, and we've got Bermuda Bay again. We've got Pool Party. We've got Granny Apple Green, and I've got Daffodil Delight. You can do this card with any colors, and it would make a great Valentine card, and maybe you would like to use pinks. So the tool I used for my blending is our new Stampin' Up blending brushes. You get 3 in a pack. They are washable, but what I do is I just use different ones for like different color families, and I use one for lighter colors and one for darker colors. You can wash them, and when I just got my first set and I only had one set, I did that. But now that I have more, I just am going to keep them for different colors. I don't know if you can see here, but maybe if I go like this, there are so many of these little teeny brushes on here, and that's what makes these blending brushes work so well. Now, we are going to start with our lightest color first, which is our Daffodil. So I'm going to tap on my ink pad, and then I'm going to just do it off here just a little bit to make sure that it's not too dark. And now I'm going to just start blending this on to my paper. See how smoothly that goes on? Now I'm doing it a little darker here, and I'm leaving it a little lighter here. The cool thing about these is that you can go back and add color when you've done all your colors if you need to have a little bit more, which that is something that I really like. Okay, there I've got the yellow. Now I'm going to come in with my pool party. Okay, and I'm just going to turn this as I'm doing it so it's lighter where I'm coloring. See how easy this is? Oh my goodness, I just think this makes such a beautiful effect. All right, I want a little bit more in here and then a little bit more here on the side. Now, we are going to come back and add some, but I'm going to just rub it off here to get all that blue off. And now I'm going to tap right back in with my green. And I'm going to hit a few of these leaves here just because I want a little bit of green. I don't want the green to be overwhelming, so I'm just going to put it in a few spots. Can you see here that green? And when the green and the yellow kind of combine, it makes kind of a greenish yellow color, and that's just fine. Now I'm going to rub off that green, and can you see here, now it's clean, even though it looks like there's green on my brush. Now I'm going to come back in with that Bermuda Bay on just a few areas here where I want just a little more darkness. All right, then back with the pool party to give it a little more pop. This is just so fun to add all these colors and just watch it materialize before your eyes. All right, now I want to get a little more yellow back in here where I can see I missed just a touch. All right. And really, you just play with this till you get it exactly how you want it. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Now, let me just close up my ink pads. We're done with those, but we're not done coloring because, as you might have noticed on this card, there's a dragonfly on there, and I did not color that dragonfly with these blending brushes, although I could have to just stamp it in black and then go all around it and create kind of a focal point. But I didn't want to do that with my card. All right, so now remember we've got our black layer 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to take my Stampin' Seal and I'm going to just put a little on the back. Now, I do not roll my adhesive like roll, 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 roll. I just do little spots around, and then I do a little piece in the middle. If you like to put it all the way down there just to make sure you've got it, well, hey, you just knock yourselves out and give me a call when you need more adhesive. Just kidding. All right. Now, we've got the black here, but I'm still not going to put that on yet because you notice this ribbon right here. Well, it is this Whisper White, really beautiful crinkled ribbon, but you notice it is white. It is not Granny Apple green. Well, Stampin' Blends to the rescue. I used the dark Granny Apple on this card, but I am going to use the light one just to show you a little difference. So you want to use the wide tip, and you can tell because there's a thick line there. And then you just put it on a scratch paper and start pulling your ribbon through. Now, sometimes if you get it exactly right, you can do the whole line of ribbon all at once. Now, I'm not quite that lucky tonight, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to still get it through here. And there we go, there. And then it dries almost immediately, so you can go right back through and pick those little areas that you missed. Okay, so now we have got our ribbon. Now, hopefully you can see it's a lighter shade than this was. So that's one cool thing about the blends. You can use the light or the dark, and you can keep adding. If you start out with the light, then you can keep adding to get the shade that you want. That's why, unless I know I want it to be really dark, I will start out with the light, because you can always add, but you can't take away, right? All right, so let's tie my knot here, because I just wanted a knot. I don't want a bow on there. All right, so now we can move it to where we want it. And I'm going to snip off these ends because I don't want those hanging out there. And now we are ready to put this layer onto the card itself. And I want to make sure that ribbon stays down like it's supposed to. So I'm going to just make sure that my adhesive goes over that. Now, have you seen me give you this little trick for your seal? If it's not advancing, if you will just run it for a brief tick on your silicone mat, then it will start coming out again, and it will be there exactly how you want it to be. All right. And I'm sticking my fingers down. There we go. Okay. And if you just barely rub it and then you flick it up at the end, that will help it from not advancing. All right. We don't want that ribbon there. Okay, so now I'm going to bring back my cardstock here, my Bermuda Bay. All right, so now we've got everything that we need, but we need our butterfly. So if you notice on this card, there is just a little border of the granny apple green, and then there's the white where I stamp my butterfly. So the granny apple green is 2 3/8 by 2 7/8. Great way to use up your scraps, by the way. And then my white piece where I'm going to stamp my butterfly is 2 1/4 by 2 3/4. It's basically 1/4 of an inch smaller. So let me get my butterfly all inked up. I'm going to use my Memento black ink. I'm going to set down my butterfly, and then I'm going to ink like this. For me, it works a little bit better doing it this way than taking the stamp and inking it in the pad. Whatever way you prefer is just perfect. All right, now I want to stamp it just so it is a little bit tilted to the right, so it looks like my butterfly is kind of flying. All right, so let me make sure that that's dry. Sometimes when the Memento pad, when you re-ink it, it gets really juicy. And I want to make sure that it's dry. So remember, we used Pool Party, Granny Apple Green, and we used Daffodil Delight for the colors when we used our blending brushes. So I've pulled out my light and dark from all of those shades. Now, what I'm going to do is actually start with the light daffodil. And what I'm going to do is I am just going to, do you see all these little lines here on the butterfly? That's where I'm going to add my color. If you wanted to, you could add it all over the wing, but I am just going to flick and add some of this yellow on the wings. Just very randomly, quick, quick, quick. Then I'm actually going to do the same thing here on the body. So we're going to let that just wave it in the air a little bit. Then I'm going to come back in on just this bottom wing, and I'm going to add over that yellow light, daffodil light, a little bit of dark daffodil. Can you see now just a little bit how this bottom wing is darker? Then I'm going to come in with my light Granny Apple Green, and I'm going to put a little bit all over the wings again. And maybe you can see here how I'm just building, building, building on top of this butterfly. And that's the concept you want to think about when you're using the blends. You're building color, and then due to the fact that these are alcohol markers, you won't see any lines once you get it all together. Okay, now I'm going to just take my Pool Party and I'm going to go around in little circles where I have laid down that other color. I'm just going to fill it in. Okay, and down here. All right. Can you see, let me hold it up here, how this is starting to take form. Now, I see here that I have gotten black on here, which I didn't want, but how I can fix that is I can, once I'm all done, just cut out this butterfly and then have it pop up on my green. And I will show you that, because I bet some of you might do that same thing where you get your hand on something and then it kind of messes it up. And I want to show you that you don't have to worry about that. All right, now I've added a little more dark green, and now I'm going to just go around the edge here and add a little more of my Bermuda Bay. I just love how our Stampin' Up inks all coordinate. So my paper, my pads, my blends all coordinate. So that makes it just extra special, because you know that everything coordinates and you don't have to worry. Have you ever, I know before I got involved with Stampin' Up and my kids were little, I would be going to Walmart trying to match like a red or something for their school project. And then lo and behold, that red would not match. And it was very frustrating to me because I like stuff to be perfect when I was doing my kids' projects. Okay, now I've got all that color down there, and I've got the same colors here that I had on my card. But I'm not done yet. I want sparkle on this butterfly. So I am going to bring in my Wink of Stella, and we are going to get a little flash on that butterfly. I don't know if you can see that, but hopefully you can. All right, now, like I was going to tell you, I would cut around this butterfly, and then, well, you know what? Let me just go ahead and do that really quickly before I get to the other tips that I was going to share with you on the inks, because I want you to see exactly what I would do. Now, actually, why am I fussy cutting this? We have a punch that goes with that. I don't know what I was thinking. Let me put the Post-it note on here so I can stick it into my, wait a minute, I've got it on the wrong end. Let me stick it in here so I can just punch this out, and I do not need to fussy cut that. Let me see if I can get it in here the right way. All right. How exciting, the magic of television here, right? Can I smush that down there to get it where I want it to go? Let me pull that off, and that will help get that out. Okay. Aha, there we go. All right. So, see how beautifully this lines up? All right. Voila. There is my little butterfly. Now, I am just going to take some Stampin' Dimensionals, which I have right here. Usually I forget those and I have to jump off camera and get them, but I did a better job tonight of being prepared. All right, so let me just take those off. There we've got him on my Granny Apple Green, but wait, we're not done yet. So on this card, I colored these in my Bermuda Bay on my pearls here. So I wanted to show you how I did that. Stampin' Blends work so well for coloring your pearls, your rhinestones. So if you don't have Bermuda Bay pearls, and I doubt you do because we don't sell them. If you do have some, you need to email me or leave me a message here and tell me where you got them so I can get some too. All right, so there we go. Now I've got those pearls. I'm just going to come in with my Take Your Pick tool. This little baby here costs $10, and it is one of the best things I have. It has got a little piercing tool on here where I can pick up these pearls so easily from my what do you call this? From my pearl package. That's not the right name, but that's what I can think of right now. Where do I want this? I think I want this one right here. Okay, then let me get this last one here. Sometimes they're a little obstreperous, but I've got him there, and I'm going to stick this little guy right here. All right, so now I've got that butterfly. We just need a few more dimensionals. And I'm going to put one in each corner here of this piece. And I'm going to pop this right on here. And voila! The last thing, I'm going to just notice this little teeny hello stamp. This is from our Garden Wishes stamp that goes with the Dragonfly Garden. It's a suite, and this is where I got the little butterfly. If you just get the Dragonfly Garden and the punch, that's a bundle, and then the Garden Wishes has some dies that go with it. All right, let me just, I actually should have stamped this before I put it on my card, but we will see if I can do it. Ah, I did it. And there it is. So see here, we've got our two different cards, and it's so colorful. I'm so excited I got to teach you about the blending brushes. Okay, now I wanted to just share with you a little bit about when to use which kind of our Stampin' Up! Inks. Okay, one of the black inks that you might use is our Jet Black StazOn. Now, if you are using a water pen, a water brush, or a blender pen, you would need to stamp your images using this StazOn black ink. The reason being, it is waterproof, so it will not bleed when you are adding water to your image. If you're watercoloring, I would also recommend using our Fluid 100 watercolor paper or our shimmery white paper when using a lot of water. This is because there would be much less pilling than if you just used our basic white. You do not want to use StazOn with alcohol markers because this is a solvent ink, and if you stamped your image and then used an alcohol marker, like one of our Stampin' Blends, it would activate that ink, it would run, and it would make a very messy image. Now, the other black that we sell is our Memento Tuxedo Black, and you saw me use that in two ways on this project. This ink is a fade-resistant dye ink, and you could use this when stamping images that do not need to be colored, like when I stamped this hello. It's great for any standalone images or standalone sentiments because it is a nice sharp ink. Now, you would also use this ink when you are using your Stampin' Blends. You can stamp this, you can color with your blends, and it will not bleed. Now, remember, when you're coloring with your blends, you do want to have something underneath it because it will bleed through, and of course you don't want to be like stamping on your friend's white tablecloth or something and ruin it. Now, if you happen to still own our archival black or gray, think of that as permanent ink. It's fast drying. You can watercolor images with that ink. We also used to sell just a basic black ink, but over the years, many people found that it would give a purplish type of image, and the pad itself, rather than looking black, would look purple. And so I think that's why they developed the archival. But now we just have the Memento and the StazOn, and those will work for all of your needs. Now, you can also use our regular basic classic ink pad in all of our colors. You can stamp a color, like let's say I was using my Bermuda Bay and I was stamping on Bermuda Bay paper. You would get a watercolor image So something, let me just bring in this greeting here, just part of it, so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's what we mean by a watermark image. It almost looks like there's water on the paper, but it's actually tone on tone or ink on ink. Now, you can also stamp. Let's say you were using this Bermuda Bay on a white piece of paper. You could use our watercolor pencils to color in and give you a vibrant colored image, like if you were coloring a flower, something like this, and you didn't want to use water, you could color this in with your watercolor pencils, and it would not matter what ink you use to color that outline. So that's just a little tip about what you can use. Now, last thing on the inks, if you are going to use a Whisper White craft pad, Carol was asking me when you would use that. You could stamp with this on a dark color, like if you wanted to stamp your sentiment, maybe white on navy blue to have it pop. But what you have to remember is you want to put clear embossing powder on that. And our craft is a sticky pad, just like the Versamark ink. I emboss with this because the embossing powder will stick to that just like it will on the craft ink. So you either want to use your embossing powder and heat it up, or if you want to just stamp that white ink right on that cardstock, you want to be sure to let it thoroughly air dry or heat it up with a heat tool. Now, there's also, you can use that craft ink. I actually, if you don't get my newsletter right now, if you go to my blog, stampmaven.com, you can sign up for my newsletter. I'll also post a link here after I post this recording, and I show you in a tutorial that you get as my free gift when you join my newsletter how to use this craft ink with our regular ink to give you a really cool design on a project. Well, guys, thanks for hanging with me to the end. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this card and learn a little bit about our new blending brushes and our blends. So I'm going to pop off now, and I'll post this recording, and feel free to just put any questions you have on here, and you bet I'll answer them. Have a great night, everybody.